So in our previous video we looked at how you can use root motion animations in Sequencer, and we created this sequence of 3 different root motion animations operating. We then exported that to create our animation. But say you wanted to go from this animation that we had created that looked like this and modify it using Control Rig so that at the end of the animation he goes down, raises his head, holds it, brings it down, and then carries on. So how do you get an animation into a Control Rig so that you can modify and edit it? Well, first of all, if you go to your animation, one option is here there is an edit in Sequencer, and as long as there is a Control Rig with that associated with that character, you can click on that, say Bake to Control Rig, and now this animation will have all the keys baked into a Control Rig. And play as we would expect it to. And these are all the keys of the Control Rig, so we could then change those. The second way is if we go back to our original root motion animation that we created in the previous video, we turned off the Control Rig here, but if you go to the Control Rig and you right click here, there's an option that says Import Anim Sequence into this section. We called ours this time our root sequence, so if we click on that, it will now import that animation into the Control Rig. And if we play that, now that animation and all the keys have been imported into the Control Rig. So that's the second way of doing it. The third way of doing it is, again, if we just delete this Control Rig that we just imported in, and if we go to the third person character, and instead of saying create linked animation sequence like we did last time, down here it says bake to Control Rig, so we can click on this. Again, we'll get some options, keep them as default, and say create, and it will bake the animation into a Control Rig. So again, we have access to all the keys in the animation, which we can then change. So for instance, if in the Control Rig you've got all the FK controls and IK controls, but if I wanted to maybe rotate the head, I can search for the head. This would be the head control. I can choose the rotation here, and now when I do that, I can move the head, and I can just press return and it will key that frame. So I could, for instance, just delete a few of these. Here I could rotate the head, key that frame. Here I could rotate the head the other way and key that frame. And now when the character is moving, the head moves one way and then it moves the other way. And you can show the Control Rig using from the animation menu. The difference between controls and IKs, if you want to rotate something, you want the control. If on the other hand you want to move something towards a goal and then have the other joints move accordingly, you go for the IK control. So for instance, if we wanted to move this chap's arm, we could probably look for the IK controls. So we want to move the left arm, we can click there. Then we get this square box, we can click on that. And if we move that, it's the wrong one. So if we actually click on the hand left IK control, now when we move it, the arm will move. We could lift it up. We can key that. Maybe remove some of these keys. We need to make sure that the IK switch is on for the frames that we want it to work for. So if we just delete some of these, tick that there, maybe tick that there as well. And now if we go back to the hand IK, move that across, key that, and that hand will stay extended, or we can move it, raise it up. Do some silly thing. Key that. Maybe just hide the control so it looks easier to see. And when we play, now when he runs, he moves his head, lifts his arm up, and then he will bring it back down again. So that's how we can modify, how we can import the animation into the control rig in the level sequencer. We can modify the keys. We could even just export this, create a linked animation there. Tutorial, export, open that, and when we open the animation, you play it the way that we authored it. So by importing the animation like we did, modifying the keys, you can sort of end up with that animation where we change it so his head rises and falls at the end. And this is just, I changed the head controls just at the right part in the sequence for that. And in the sequencer, like we showed in the second way, on the actual track itself, at the end, you can import more animations with control rig keys. So we could make him run forward at the end. He'll come, he'll do that. So if you do import new frames into the control rig, you might need to just change the transform for the new animations, because you don't have access to that matching which we had in the original video when we created the root motions, but you can string them together at the end of a previous animation, and you could change the keys if you wanted to.